Hiring dynamic reps who are passionate about your product or service is only half the battle when it comes to building and retaining a high performing sales team. In fact, today, over half of reps lack basic sales skills and don't receive adequate training. Now, this is crazy when you consider ongoing training to be the leading driver of high performing sales organizations. Now, consider this, for example. According to Forbes magazine, 55% of salespeople lack basic sales skills. 58% of buyers report that sales reps are unable to answer their questions effectively. And according to another recent survey, 84% of all sales training is lost after 90 days. 82% of B2B decision makers think sales reps are unprepared. So perhaps more sales training is the answer, but I wonder how much of it really helps when confronted with the fact that we are competing with a number of other vendors, and therefore being able to stand out from the crowd is more important than ever. Now, our guest claims he has a solution for the problem and has authored a book on it, which we'll explore in just a moment. Hello, and welcome to the Predictable B2B Success podcast brought to you by Sproutwith.com. I'm Vinay Koshy, and our guest is James Bond. James, you are one of America's leading behavioral management and business marketing specialists, and also the author of the multi-award-winning book, Brain Glue: How to Sell Easier by Making Your Ideas Sticky. Now, I believe you've run one of Southern California's leading behavioral management firms, working with the who's who American businesses for 13 years. And prior to that, you ran an advertising agency in Montreal, working with a wide range of Fortune 500 and smaller firms. You're also a past workshop chairman and sold out workshop leader for the resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration, being a featured guest speaker at 3 Southern California universities. And of course, been a popular guest on a number of podcasts as well. Thank you for coming on this one. James, I'm curious.
Thank you, Vinay.
I'm curious, was there a specific incident or event that triggered this journey into what is now the book Brain Glue?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've lived in Southern California for 35 years. We actually named our middle daughter, we gave her the initials in LA so we'd remember how long we'd been here because as soon as she was born, we moved here. Lauren AJA. So that was 5. But in Montreal, I worked my way up. I built an advertising agency, worked my way up, and eventually won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex Watches, Avon Cosmetics, Seagram's, their world headquarters is there. And I hated selling, which is weird for somebody in advertising to hate selling because what's advertising? It's selling using print and video and stuff like that. But it bothered me. I was in business with my brother, one of my brothers, for a long time. And I remember going into Avon Cosmetics and we had an opportunity to win a major account from them. And we were sitting, my brother John and I were sitting with the buyer for Avon. And he looked up at John and he said, "John, it's between you and this other company. And your price is higher than the other company, frankly. I'd love to work with you guys, but your price is higher." And so my brother leans across the desk and says, "Why do you think the other guy is so cheap?" There's a long pause. And then, like straight out of a textbook, the guy goes, "I get your point. Okay, hang on, I'll write a purchase order." I thought my brain was going to explode. We didn't have to lower our price. He's hiring us because our price is higher. And it helped me understand that there's the emotional side of selling is something I don't understand anything about. So later on, we had an opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America. And we created ads with powerful, logical reasons why you should not do drugs. And then we saw the ad that beat us, and we deserve to be beat. And it's an ad in America. I don't know if you've seen it in Australia, but in America, it's a guy holding an egg saying, "This is your brain." Then he cracks the shell and drops the egg into a sizzling frying pan with exaggerated sizzling sound. "This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?" And we saw that, 2 things happened. The first one was I recognized this was infinitely more powerful than a logical pitch that I was trying to do. This was emotional selling. But I also realized this is something I don't know how to do. In school, they teach us logic, and we start with emotion. I mean, if you start a business, you have to be passionate about what you're selling. I love Zig Ziglar always said, I took a lot of sales classes to learn selling. I love it now. I teach it and everything else. But Zig Ziglar said, selling is nothing more than transference of passion. If you're passionate about something, Nobody has to teach you how to sell, although we do have tools, so we'll tell you that. But nobody has to teach you how to sell. You have it inside you because you go, oh, I saw this movie. It was so great. I saw Hidden Figures. I love that movie with the three Black women who in NASA who was the beginning of the what a fabulous movie. Nobody has to tell me how to sell it. I know how to sell it. Okay. And everybody does, even if they don't have sales training. But so I realized I don't understand emotional selling, and emotional selling is profound. As I've done research over more than 35 years, I discovered there are major discoveries that more than 90% of buying decisions are emotionally triggered. Logic can be a part, but it's the emotional centers of the brain that need to be activated. And I don't understand emotional selling, or I didn't back then. Today I teach it and it blows people's minds. So I created a passion box right next to my computer. I put a box and I wrote down your brain on drugs on a 3x5 card and I put it inside the box. And I decided that every time I see an ad or hear something that's emotionally powerful, rather than trying to overanalyze it, because they don't teach in school emotional selling. So rather than trying to overanalyze it, I'm going to put it in the box in the hopes that eventually I'll be able to understand, have enough examples that I can understand how emotional selling works. Well, eventually, after about 10 years, we moved to Southern California. And nobody asked me why. It's because it's nice weather, What can I say? But it's also it's a big city. But I met John Gray, and John Gray is the author of this incredible book called Men, Women, and Relationships. Okay. And then he was telling me how he was frustrated because everybody who read it loved the book, and yet he only sold a few thousand copies. And he thought this is the greatest book ever. So eventually he was telling me he got this crazy idea of why don't I change the title to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and then tweak the content just a little bit so it's consistent with the title. What do you think happened? Just by changing the title, almost overnight, 500,000 copies got sold, then 1 million, then 2 million, then 5 million. I know Steve Harrison had helped him do marketing. And I wrote in my book, he sold 10 million copies. And Steve said, no, you're wrong. And I'm like, oh, did I over exaggerate? I wasn't trying to exaggerate. I actually checked it. He said, no, we're over 50 million copies already sold. He went from 20,000 to 50 million copies just because he changed the title. I thought my brain was going to explode. As I'm writing Men Are From Mars on a 3x5 card, I suddenly realized, wait a second, this is a metaphor. Are metaphors the secret to emotional selling? This is your brain on drugs is also a metaphor because it wasn't a brain he was holding, it was an egg. And I went, is that the secret? When I got home, I dumped the passion box on my bed and quickly discovered that metaphors is one of 14 brain triggers at the heart of emotional selling. And absolutely, I thought my brain was going to explode. First, I started like putting them together and saying, okay, there's these different elements. Let's all talk through what the elements are. But they became they're blockbuster products and services. So we have two elements that happen. One is we discover something. And the second one, especially as a consultant, is we apply it with our clients and see how it works. Okay. It makes sense in theory. Look at how many blockbusters we have. So I took a construction company. I had no experience with construction. After 10 years, had $2 million of sales. That's not bad, $2 million after 10 years. Well, I took them to 10 million in 1 year, and they reached 32 million 2 years later. Applying brain glue. It wasn't called brain glue back then. It took me a while to understand. These are things that stick to the brain. But what happened was I hadn't created a shopping list. I use a whiteboard. I love whiteboard. I use a whiteboard, and I created a shopping list with them of all the clients over 10 years that they had. Okay. And it took a while. It took about an hour or something to come up with, oh, how about this one? How about this one? And all that stuff. And we had a shopping list. And I said, let's play a game. Let's pretend you're only going to focus on one type of client and you're going to say no to everybody else. Who would it be? What would it be? And they said, we don't want to do that because we don't want to turn off clients. I said, it's a game. It's a game, guys. Let's do this. Okay. Game. The game exploded their sales. And it took a while. They went through this and they said, you know what? For 2 different insurance companies, we did 3 opportunities that we had fire restoration for insurance companies. I said, what's that? And they said, an insurance company that has a client that has a fire, they would bring us in. And we had one client, one insurance company that brought us in for 2, and another one brought us in for 1. But it was really good to do. We liked doing it. We recognized that if a building is on fire, if a building has a fire, The first thing you do as a construction company is you go in and check if the frame is damaged. If the frame is damaged, you have to turn out the whole building. But if it's not damaged, then you can fix it up, make sure it's not going to catch fire again and all that stuff. And so they said, yeah, we'd like to focus on fire restoration for insurance companies. So I said, let's think of the mind of the buyer, an insurance company. So what word comes to mind for them? The first one is fire, right? Fire. Your client wants to have a fire. So why don't we call you guys the fire extinguisher? And then we'll get the website firex.com to make it easier to find us. And they started laughing when they said, okay, let's try it. And I went with them to 2 clients, two prospects. And I remember we're saying to them, just think of us as your fire extinguisher. Every time you have a client that has a fire, you're going to bring us in and we'll extinguish the damage, okay? And of course the clients would laugh, but laughers are buyers. And sales went from million to 10 million in 1 year. In fact, they razzed me because they said, hey, Bond, it was supposed to be 12 million. And I was like, shut up. They bought it on his BMW. They had 3 brand new Beamers in their office. They couldn't believe how much cash was coming in, all because they changed the title. And it was mind blowing. And as I've researched this and applied this to hundreds of clients, I work with the U.S. Small Business Administration. So I teach it in classes now. It's just blown people's minds. Take a look at, so we're focusing on B2B, okay? And it applies to B2B and B2C, okay? So how about this? Kerry Smith started a manufacturing company and he was making pretty good money. He had a friend that had a fan company, was a really big fan. So he thought, you know what? I could buy his company. He bought his company and they make really big fans, the kind of fans that go in a barn. In a barn, you're not going to put air conditioning for horses and cows. You're going to put a big fan in there, okay? So he sold really big fans. And then at one point he was running an ad and he thought, how do I describe this? I think I'm going to describe this as big ass fans. Go see what happens. Okay. And sales exploded. People were laughing as they were buying. Okay. And then he thought, that's interesting. Maybe I should change the name of the company to Big Ass Fans. Okay. And he has a funny logo. He has a butt of a donkey facing you. The donkey's looking away from you, but his hand is also. And it says Big Ass Fans. It's funny. Sales exploded. In fact, he says, and he likes to talk about this, that sales actually absolutely exploded. Then he started offering other products. And then he realized, wait a second, I'm distracting myself. I need to focus just on fans. After 15 years, he decided to sell the company. He wanted to retire. After 15 years, how many people want to sell their company and you have trouble selling a company? He had no trouble. He sold his company for $500 million. Wow. From practically zero to $500 million, all because of big ass fans. And it applies. There's New Pig Corporation. Okay. These guys started selling rags for car dealers, car repair shops and stuff like that. And they've grown, or I think we're over $1 billion now. And it's privately owned. They're not even public. And they got this idea. There was a nickname for fans, for rags called pigs. We call them pigs. I don't know why, but that's a nickname. So they said, why don't we call ourselves New Pig Corporation? And then we'll actually have our sales reps have a hat with a pig snout on the front and a twisted tail at the back. And we'll say, hey, guess what, guys? Buy rags from us and we'll give you one of these hats. You see, they're selling rags. And like people would laugh, but it's New Pig Corporation. They call their catalog the Pigalog. Okay. Hilarious. But they grew like crazy because they stood out from the crowd. Because we're logical people. The people who are really successful in business or have really good products or services tend to be logical. But it's emotion that sells. You have to trigger the emotion centers in the brain. And we always say, you want people to know and trust you. Yeah. I got that. But it's got to go beyond that. And if it's no trust, then get it to laugh, like big ass fans or New Pig Corporation. It doesn't have to be laughing, but often that helps. Sales go through the roof.
Right. So
it's so powerful. It's just emotional selling it's amazing. And it's amazing how often and easy it works.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm also curious, James, given your journey to date, what would you say is your personal area of strength?
Marketing. I was in business. My dad had a business. He was an entrepreneur. He had different types of businesses. He had at one point a commercial laundry, which he had a tough time because he had to deal with the mafia because they tried to control businesses like that. And so he would interact with them, but he didn't do business with them. They liked him, so it was fine. So I must have inherited some of that from him. But it's like a lot of dads in business. I would never go to the front office while he was and just talk about business. And I remember my younger brother, who was a CPA, And so we'd be sitting and folding towels, which actually helped us a lot because it taught us to do something that's redundant, that doesn't bother you. There's certain things in business and marketing you have to do, and it's like boring, but you have to do it. You roll up your sleeves and do it. And so my brother would always say, yeah, it's like folding towels. He can relate to that. But it bothered me. I felt bad because I wanted to learn about business. How do you make money? Again, I'm working for my dad and folding towels and stuff, and he paid us almost nothing. That's what dads do sometimes. But it really fascinated me. Like, how do you make money? How does business work? And so eventually, at one point, I went to school for mechanical engineering, but I put myself through school. I didn't want my dad to support me. I wanted to support myself as much as I could. And I ended up doing something I loved to do, which was photography. I was a photographer, and I learned commercial photography. I didn't do weddings and stuff like that. I did like ads and stuff like that. I actually apprenticed with world famous photographers. Most people don't, if I said their names, most people wouldn't know who they are because it's in the advertising business that we know the names. But these guys were just profound. But I was so fascinated by how business works that I said, well, if I'm doing photography, I have to learn advertising. And the more I learn advertising, how advertising works, okay, it's visual and message and stuff like that. I started learning marketing because I realized marketing is the boss of advertising. In fact, I've worked with major companies like Kraft Foods and stuff like that. And some agencies hated us, some loved us, but they hated us because we would be able to go around them because we're not focusing on ads, we're focusing on marketing, which is the whole process. Ads is one piece of it, but I like to say, and even in marketing class, because I've been invited, I speak to a lot of major universities, and they have in marketing the 4 Ps: product, price, place, promotion. Okay. And I go, oh no, that's okay. But I think there's something even more important than that. Who, what, how, now? Who are you targeting? What are you going to say to them so they want to buy from you? How are you going to reach them with your message? And then now, how do you get them to buy now instead of procrastinate? Right. And so when I put all those together, and especially in the beginning, I hated selling, which is really a good thing because eventually I learned how to sell and I love selling. But to me, selling was like, I felt like a car salesman. Not that car salesmen are bad, but I just felt like, oh, I'm just, hey, want to buy this thing, buddy? Hey, blah, blah, blah. And I sat down with one of my brothers and we came up with questions, 5 questions initially. And I realized that by having the right questions, I felt more like a doctor analyzing a patient and identifying whether I could help them or not, rather than a car salesman. Okay. And my questions were, what do you sell? To who? How is it used? What are you competing with? And why yours? Why should somebody buy yours instead of the alternatives? And I would work with major clients like IBM and Kraft Foods and stuff like that. And I work with IBM and I knew what they are. I said, so what do you sell? We're IBM. You don't know what we sell. I said, I want to hear it in your own words. What do you sell? And we work with a division. They would start describing it. And as they answered the questions, the answer of how to work with them came out. And I'll give you an example with Seagram's. So Seagram's was one of the first clients I applied this to, of asking questions. And and I'll give you a few questions that are really powerful that everybody who's in selling needs to know, okay, in a second. But so I went into Seagram's. So Seagram's was the first one I was actually going to practice my questions on. So I had a little act that I would do. I would say, so I'd like to show you the samples of the work that we've done. I'd lean forward. They'd lean forward. I said, but first I'd like to ask you some questions if that's okay. Then I'd lean back and they would lean back in their chair, you know. They say, sure, oh, absolutely. And so in Seagram's, I was talking to the buyer from Seagram's, and as I was asking him questions, he started telling me, we spent $50,000 to $100,000 and more on the bottle and the label. Okay, packages too, but the bottle and the label because they sit on a counter. And so if we have an old bottle, it's got to look old, but it can't look old and rusted and everything else. It's going to have a certain look to it. And that's why we spend so much money. As I heard him say that, I had worked with a lamp manufacturer that had hundreds of lamps, glass chandeliers and things like crystal chandeliers and stuff like that. So normally I would take out my whole portfolio and take them through 20 or 30 different examples of ads we did. But he was telling me the power of the bottles were so important. And I went, oh, let me show you. We worked with a lighting catalog, a lamp manufacturer. I started showing him this. I said, look, we do this. It's crystals. We want to show the texture of the glass and all that stuff. And how some of them are translucent and everything. And he went, oh, we got to work with you guys. We have to work with you guys. I showed him 2 examples. Normally I take him through 20 examples and I hoped that I got it right. But this time he told me what he wanted. And so I took him through 2 samples and he was in love with us. He was like, I have to work with you guys. You guys are incredible. And it just, I was walking out of the office and I'm going like, boy, that works really well. So here are questions. I train a lot of salespeople to do this. When we had advertising, we learned 3 sets of power questions: past, present, future. Okay. When you're sitting with a client, when we're sitting with advertising, we would say, with advertising or potential advertising client, we would say, have you past tense? Have you ever worked with an advertising agency before? If they say yes or no, it makes no difference, because we would say what worked and what didn't work for you. And they would start telling us like how to sell them, basically.
Yep.
Then we say, are you working with one right now, or are you doing the advertising yourself? And regardless of what they said, we say, what's working for you now and what's not working for you now? And future, if you had a chance to work with a really amazing advertising agency, what would that relationship be like? What would you want to have happen that isn't happening right now? And they're basically telling us how to sell it. All we have to say is, oh, we can do that. Here, let's shake hands. And it's powerful because I remember I was working with a client, martial arts equipment company. And this more recently, but I was helping them as far as marketing is concerned. And when they had a social media advertising company they were using, it was terrible, just terrible. So we were looking for another social media advertising company. And they spent $30,000 a month just on the company, not counting all the social media expense. And they spent some money. So we got a referral to this woman who had done social media advertising. And this person that referred us said, oh, she's really great and stuff she does is really great. So we got her on the phone on a conference call. And what she said was, she started blah, 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 blah. We do this and we do that and we do this and we do that and we can do this and everything else. And I looked at the client and I'm like, I don't think we want to work with her. All she had to say was, so what's working for you and what's not working for you right now? And then we would be talking blah, 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 tell her everything. And then she would say, oh, I can help you with that. Absolutely. And then she'd win us as a client. But instead she was blabbing away. And as we were saying, but we didn't, at one point, the client actually started trying to interrupt her. She wouldn't even stop talking. It's just ridiculous. Selling is easy when you understand that you have to be passionate about what you sell, but also think about it from a marketing standpoint. You want to think about it as you're like a doctor and analyzing the patient and deciding what you think work and not work with them. But then when I go back to these issues about a brain glue, then I realize that there's a trick. It's not really a trick, but it's when you can trigger the emotion centers of the brain, it becomes easier to make a ton of money, not just a little bit of money. I went to Home Depot here and to buy stuff, and I'm looking at stuff because now I'm into brain glue since I've been in it for 35 years. Now I always say, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. I see that. So I saw ads for JB Weld, which is an adhesive that's really fantastic. Right. Okay. And they say it's the best weld thing out there. Okay. And yet they're competing with Gorilla Glue. Who do you think's bigger? Okay. Gorilla Glue in the Home Depot that I went to has a whole counter, a whole section with Gorilla Glue. And then for JB Weld, it's got like about 5 or 6 samples. You can see it visually over there. What if JB Weld, which I believe it is, and a lot of people told me JB Weld is better than Gorilla Glue, but they don't sell more. And the reason they don't sell more is because Gorilla Glue, the manufacturers, understand emotional selling. I heard this story and it really resonated with me. And it was, how would you like to invent a product and your biggest competitor steals the idea from you and makes so much money that you have to stop selling the product because you can't even make a living selling the product, but they're making millions, eventually billions of dollars with it. How'd you like to do that? Okay. So let me give you a great example. So Post Cereals competes with Kellogg's. Okay. There's a whole backstory, but I don't want to get into that because it's just not related to this. But so the head of Post Cereals wanted to invent a new product, a totally different type of product besides cereal. So he thought, let's create this little cake that has jelly inside it and it has real strawberry, raspberry, blueberry inside it, really nice. But you put it in the toaster and then it cooks it a little bit. So you have a little cake and you can have it for breakfast, for lunch, as a snack, whatever else. It's really great. And he was so excited about it that 3 months before he launched it, he called it Country Squares. And 3 months before he launched it, he publicized it to media. Oh, we have this new product called Country Squares. It's coming in. You put it in a toaster and it comes up. Here's what it looks like. And this is exciting. So the head of Kellogg, he looked at that and went, like, what a fantastic product. Got his people inside that we need to invent that product. But he came up with a better name. So back then, Andy Warhol was really famous. And Andy Warhol was a pop artist. Okay, you're nodding your head because you know what I'm getting.
Yep.
Okay, we all know it. But Andy Warhol was a pop artist. So on the top of everybody's mind is the word pop art. And also it pops out of the toaster when we're cooking it. Why don't we call it Pop Tarts? Pop Tarts became he launched it a week before Country Squares got launched, a week before. And their sales went through the roof, for nobody was buying Country Squares. So much so that they got embarrassed that literally within about a week or so, Kellogg's ran out of Pop Tarts. And they ran full-page ads apologizing. They said, we are so sorry we run out of it because so many people, all of you love it. But if you hang on for just about a week, we'll have more of it coming in the stores, okay? Nobody bought Country Squares while they're waiting for Pop-Tarts. They waited for Pop-Tarts to come, and when they went out and they bought it again. And Pop-Tarts became a massively successful, I believe it's the most successful product Kellogg's has ever had, okay? And Country Squares within a year stopped selling Country Squares. They invented it, but Kellogg's had a better name for it because they understood the importance of something resonating with the brain. Pop-Tarts, people can wait, it pops out of the toaster. Pop-Tarts, what a cool name.
Yep.
It's just, and when we understand this, because I work on B2B and B2C, both sides, I love both of them. But we have to understand that it doesn't matter what you're selling. If you need to trigger the emotion centers of the brain. If you can make people laugh, they're going to buy from you. If you can make people make it resonate and understand what it is you're selling. There's this mom in Utah, in California, in Utah, America, and her son, and she's sitting on the toilet. Okay, I'll give you a story here. I won't get too detailed here, okay? But she's sitting on the toilet, and she comes up with this idea: is that it's very valuable for your body if you can raise your feet about 6 inches off the ground when you're in the toilet. Okay. And so we should create this product called Toilet Stool. They were watching Shark Tank and they said, let's invent a product like Shark Tank. That's on Shark Tank. And just let me end the story and I'll come back to this, how they did it. Okay. They have a mom and her son with no business experience generated $100 million of sales in less than 2 years with no business experience. Okay. How did they do it? So she's sitting on the toilet and she says, yeah, this stool would be really good to raise people's legs. And it's easier when you go to the bathroom. It's better for your body. Okay. So what would we call it? We can call it the toilet stool. My wife says she should have called it the stool, but I don't think that would work. So, but the toilet stool is not a good name. That's a logical name. Okay. Which I always say, start with a logical name. Okay. So the toilet stool, but that doesn't really resonate. But let's see, what's another word for a toilet? I guess a potty. Okay, and when we're sitting on the toilet with this thing, you're squatting. Why don't we call it this potty? Squatty Potty, because of that name, it triggered sales. They went to past $100 million of sales in literally within 2 years. Whereas how many other people invent products that are fantastic, but they struggle? They actually made it to Shark Tank, and the investors were standing in line to invest with them because they said, oh, Squatty Potty, what a great name, and I love your product and everything else. And it's from a marketing standpoint, you want to trigger the emotion sides of the brain so people want to buy your product, so they remember it. I always think of it this way. You leave your home, you drive down the street, okay? You've got all these houses or apartments down the street when you're driving down the street. You're not going to look at everyone and go, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that. You drive past it every day. You're not going to look at you know where you're going. One day you're driving down the street past all these homes and suddenly one of your neighbors has flames coming out of his window. You're going to stop and go, huh? What? Does he know his house is on fire? Is our house going to burn down? We got to call 911? Does it trigger the brain? There's a brain trigger that lets you know flames coming out of a window is not a good thing. Okay. Maybe in Hollywood, but not normally. And so you want the same thing with your product or service, is that they look at it and you want flames coming out of your hand. So you go, oh, what's that? You want the name of your product. You want when you're describing your product, like I had with a fire extinguisher, with the construction guys. You want it to stick in the brain and pop out of their brain when they're thinking I'd like to buy a product like that. So I'll go back to the construction guys, the fire extinguisher. So anytime somebody had a fire, they go, oh, fire, okay, I got to call a construction company. Oh, wait a second. I got to call my fire extinguisher. It triggers the brain. Squatty Potty, you go with it, you know what it is. They have Paul Tran invented this electric razor for man's private areas. I don't want to get too much into this, okay? But he invented an electric razor for man's private areas. And so we know that metaphor is a powerful tool. And so he was thinking, what can I call this that would really stand out, but it won't offend people? Why don't I call it the lawnmower? He calls it the lawnmower. He calls his company Manscaped. Okay, we're going to landscape the man with a lawnmower. Okay. So if I bought the lawnmower, I didn't, but if I did, I wouldn't share it with guys. Let's start there. Okay. But I would share the story with them. I say, hey, guess what? I bought a lawnmower. I bought the lawnmower. And I could see her friend saying, what, do you have to mow your lawn? I said, no, it's for my private areas. They start laughing and they start sharing the story with other people. And it goes back to like big ass fans or a new pig corporation and things like this. Is these became massively wealthy because they figured out a brain trigger. The lawnmower, he had over $100 million. This guy is taking off. The big companies like Braun tried to buy him out, and he's going, oh no, you guys aren't offering me enough money, because he can't believe how much money he's making from this. Okay. And it's just when you understand the power of emotional triggers, of brain triggers, it just changes. It makes it easier to sell. It actually makes it more fun to sell too, because I'm selling Squatty Potty. It's people go, Squatty Potty, what's that? Oh yeah, let me tell you what this is. And it's going to stick to the brain. And so it's just so much fun. That's why I'm having fun. People are buying my book like crazy because they're going like, wow, I just renamed this, or we changed how our pitch is. I can't believe how easy this is. And it's so easy. But I think because we start with passion, but school taught us logical. We want to be logical, how you solve problems and all that stuff. But you still have to be passionate. And so you have to transfer that passion to your sales pitch, to your product name. And we forget to do that. So we think logically first of what we want to call the product. And then we come up with the toilet stool. If you sell a toilet stool, also a Squatty Potty. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay. It's so amazing.
No, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of listeners would certainly be on board with this idea that emotion sells better than logic. But the application of it, even though you say it's simple, it doesn't come naturally to a lot of businesses. I'm curious, how do you help them navigate this journey of going from where they're at to what they could be doing, whether it's renaming a particular product or repositioning it? Now, you certainly shared with us good questions to be asking, but is there more that we should be taking into consideration when trying to go on this journey of trying to adapt brain glue to our specific circumstances?
Absolutely. And so let me tell you how this works, okay? We're logical people, so you always have to start with a logical definition of what it is that you're selling, okay? But then you want to apply one tool at a time, and then you want to see which one sticks. Okay, and I'll give you examples with meat. So how do I describe brain glue? Okay, so I would start with, the first thing I came up with was, with rhyme, switch your pitch if you want to get rich. Okay. And then as I was thinking about it, I eventually came up with a second one. And it took a few days, and I came up with the second one. It was, you want to light the fire of desire in your buyer. Okay. And the way I came up with it was desire. I was trying to think of passion and all that stuff. Desire is a good word for it. So what rhymes with desire? Buyer. Oh, that rhymes with desire in your buyer. Oh, light the fire. Light the fire of desire in your buyer. And I came up with that. Okay. By the way, I went to ChatGPT and I asked it. I gave it some examples and stuff, and it gave me like 100 stupid examples, but it gave me one good one. And that was, why brain glue? Because plain glue doesn't stick to the brain. I thought, man, that was good. Okay. But then I went also with a metaphor, and I was struggling. It took me a while to think of a metaphor for it, but I eventually thought of the metaphor, which is driving down the street and there's no flames. You have flames coming out of a window. That helps people relate to what I'm talking about, which I want to grab attention in a world where people are so over communicated to that you don't stand out. You need to find a way to stand out from the crowd. Jack Canfield wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's a blockbuster book, sold over $1 billion. Whoever wrote a book that sold over $1 billion, he sold 500 million copies, 100 million copies of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and 400 million of the other books in the series, Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, Chicken Soup for a Cancer Survivor Soul, etc. And so I don't need to teach him anything. I blew his mind. He was pissed because he was telling me I have great quotes, okay? And I got to tell you a mistake I made. But he said that when he came up with the idea for the book, it's 101 motivational stories that will change your life. That's what he said. So I can call it 101 motivational stories that will change your life, but it really bothered him because it's logical. He wasn't thinking of it as logical, but it doesn't resonate. Okay. And I want to find a way to resonate. He said within about a month, he woke up one day and he said, chicken soup makes you feel good if you feel sick. Why don't I call my book Chicken Soup for the Spirit? Okay. And then he was saying, okay, it doesn't really work, but it's at least chicken soup for the spirit. It kind of doesn't, there's something that doesn't sound right with it, but I like the idea. As time went, he said after a few days, he thought of alliteration, which is a repetition of sounds. And think of alliteration, okay? Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok. You think it's a coincidence to use alliteration, a repetition of sounds? Look, in America, we have Biden's Build Back Better. You think it's a coincidence they chose that? Trump's Make America Great Again, great again. You know what I mean? They use this because they understand the power. But so Jack Canfield was telling me, so he said SOUP, SOUL, chicken soup for the soul. That resonates more, chicken soup for the soul. And that's how he came up with the name. But he came up with the name by tapping into his emotions. But he's written over 65 other books, and most of them are bestsellers. But they're bestsellers because it's Jack Canfield. He's already famous, okay? I mean, they're fabulous books. I don't want to put them down because Jack writes fabulous books and they change lives and everything. But nothing sells like Chicken Soup for the Soul. That's 500 million books. And when he started reading my book, and he looks at a lot of books and people submit books to him and say, and all that stuff. He said, I got so pissed off. I got so many books to read and I started reading your book. I couldn't put the damn thing down. I'm like, I'm sorry. Can I use that as a quote? No. But he said, so here's the mistake I made. I'm teaching everybody emotional selling, and I had a logical title for my book. My book was not called Brain Glue. It was called Sell More with the Right Brain Marketing Strategy. Because I'm a logical person. What can I say? And Jack Canfield said, I'll give you these quotes. We love the book. I'm buying a copy for everybody in my company. I'm fortunate to read it and apply it. Okay. But only on one condition. But you can use my quotes on one condition. You got to change the name of the title. So the whole book is about brain glue. Why are you calling it? I can't even remember the title. Sell More is the Right Brain Marketing Strategy. So I got to fall into it, as most of us do. We fall into the logic. It's the logic side. It's sell more with a right brain marketing strategy. That's what the whole book is about, with an emotional selling. But brain glue resonates much more. And so it's easy for us to fall into that trap. And that's why we have to understand, like you're asking, like, how do you create this? The book makes it really easy to create this because it has 14 tools. It gets there. I have ADD, so like I have short attention span, and people love the book because you get to it and you move on. It isn't like I have to do 100 pages describing metaphors. A few pages and it describes it, gives you examples that resonate with people's brains, and they go, oh, and then they go, okay, and then it gives you examples of lots of other things, including comedy, how they comedians use brain glue all the time. Which when you start seeing, you go, oh, I get that joke. Oh, I see that. I got one. I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. Okay. Or is another one? I'm older, so I can relate to this one. I'd rather wake up and pee than pee and wake up. Okay. I'm just, these work. But famous people use these tools, like Warren Buffett uses quotes that are really powerful. So Warren Buffett is one of the world's richest people. I've worked with him and his team. And Warren Buffett has this great line. It's one of my favorite lines. And it's, only when the tide goes out do you realize who's been swimming naked. It's memorable. What he's basically saying is only when times get tough do you realize who's really competent, okay? But if you said that, kind of people go, yeah, I heard that, I can relate to it, okay. It doesn't stick to the brain, but only when the tide goes out do you realize you've been swimming naked? I got a visual right away. But it sticks to the brain, and it is. And Warren Buffett, there are a lot of famous people who are very wealthy, Bill Gates and stuff like that. And yet Warren Buffett his quotes are done all the time. The media love him. And that's why when people want to buy, if he's buying their company, and I know that because I work with him when he would start buying whole companies, people love having Warren Buffett work with him. And part of it is because he's famous because of the cool things that he says. So when we understand that, the book is set up in such a way. Oh, yes, I'm selling the book. But the point is, I'm selling brain glue, the concept. And so there are 14 brain triggers. And so what you do is you first come up with, and this is why people are blown away by this, first come up with the logical description of what you want to say, either the title of your product or service or description of how you want to describe it, okay? Then we go through each one of the 14 triggers, and there are exercises, so people do the exercise to come up with it. And then not every exercise is going to work. Not every exercise you're going to want to do. you want to do because it won't apply to your product, but it becomes really powerful. And I'll give you an example. We use metaphors. So I ran one of America's leading behavioral management firms, working with a who's who of American business and like Warren Buffett's team, Saul Price, who founded the Price Club that became Costco and all this stuff, and all this stuff. So we would describe it. We had 22 PhDs in psychology and organizational development, stuff like that, plus senior execs from big consulting companies. When we describe what we do and why it's so powerful, and with one of the main services we offer, people's eyes would glaze over. We use this in psychology and and we start describing psychological tools because we're technical people. Hey, we figured out how to do this thing. That I realized we need to come up with a simple way to describe it. So I said, just think of us like a personal trainer or a personal coach that shows up at your house, and a personal coach can get you to do more push-ups than you could do on your own. Come on, Vinay. 5 more. We can do 5 more. 4 more. Come on. Yeah. I know it hurts. Come on. 3 more. You can do it. So personal coach can get you to do more push-ups than you can do on your own. From a psychological standpoint, we can get your senior people to tackle slightly bigger projects that they can tackle on their own. When people heard that, they went, oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay. And they can relate because they can understand how a guy doing push-ups can get you to do more push-ups than you're doing on your own. So if you guys do it from a psychological standpoint, that makes sense and it resonates. And that resonated more than us talking about all these verisimilitude and all these different tools that we have. It just works better. And that's why when we communicate using these tools, this isn't just for naming products, although you would definitely want to do that because you make a ton of money, but it also applies to interacting with even family members. Like one of the tools I have is simple reflexive questions. Okay. And every salesperson needs to learn this. If you sell, every business owner needs to learn this. Isn't it, doesn't it, shouldn't it, are simple reflexive questions, aren't they? You add them to the end of a sentence and it takes a phrase, a statement that you make and turns it into a question. Now, why do you want to do that? So what's the most powerful tool of human interaction that exists? I'm using it now, aren't I? What am I doing? I'm using questions, aren't I? Questions are profoundly interactive. They trigger interactivity. It's the brain. If you hear a question, you want to answer it. Okay. Don't you? Okay. So when you put a simple reflexive question, isn't it, doesn't it, shouldn't it, don't you agree, at the end of your statement, it makes people more interactive with you. And I'll give you an example with a friend. Okay. I had a friend and I said, in Southern California, what can I say? What a beautiful day. Okay. That's what I would say. And I said, what a beautiful day, isn't it? And it's because once you start practicing it, it becomes wired into your system. With my kids, I've got a son and 3 daughters, and my relationship has radically improved because I include simple reflexive questions. So with my friend, okay, I said, man, hey, Josh, what a beautiful day, isn't it? And he goes, yeah. And I go, what's wrong? And I say, oh, what's up? I don't want to talk about it. So, what? I'm having a fight with my wife and I don't know what's going to go on. And I got to talk with him and interact with him. When you're with a client or a prospect, we start talking, we say stuff because we love our product. If there's if they get something that doesn't resonate with them, they have an objection. Often they're not going to tell you the objection. They're going to sit there and go, okay. And you're going to go through the whole pitch. And the longer you go without addressing the objection, the bigger the objection stands in the way of your buying. It's just how the mind works. Okay. So if I'm saying, okay, no, they're not doing, and we think we're going to do this, does that make sense? And they go, yeah. I go, well, what's the problem? With ours, we have this all the time. They're saying, I don't know. I don't know that we'd have enough time to do this. I had the construction guys, 2 to 10 million sales and 32 million, and 2 years later. And because I have it wired into me, I would say, does that make sense? And they would go, yeah. I said, oh, what's wrong? Yeah. I don't know that we have enough time to be able to take the time to go through have you guys coaching us. And I said, oh, come on. It's 2 hours once a week. You can go to the bathroom for 2 hours. Give me a break. And he goes, oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. And he ended up using us as clients. But when you use this, it's so profound because we're used to talking, blah, 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 blah. But what you want to do is you want to interact. Even if you're just saying, does that make sense? And listen to their reaction. When you do this often enough, you become focused on this. And you don't wait to the end before you ask, does that make sense? Or doesn't it, should you, does it, isn't it, doesn't, shouldn't it, don't you agree? What you do is while you're talking, you want to say this. In my book, I have an audience of 300 to 500 people, and I do it in my audience. I'll say, no, does that make sense? it's wired into me. And I'll see a whole bunch of people with like glassy eyes, and they're going like, I said, tell me what you think. I'd realize that it's not really working for you. Let me explain it in a different way. And I explain it a different way. And people go, okay. And it's a powerful way to have human engagement without having, where you get them, you uncover what's really going on in their mind. Does that make sense? I can't even stop.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm curious though. It's an interesting process, and I certainly get the whole emotional side of marketing. But I'm curious, in your processes as you're helping clients, do you take into account customer stories and testimonials as part of the overall process? If so, could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of the most important things you can do. And you know why? Because they will often use words, a way to describe it totally different than we would, because we're internal. We're so used to doing it that we don't even remember what people will say something thinking they get it, because we know it. And we know it so well that we don't understand it. People don't understand it when we're talking to them. That's why simple reflexive questions is important. That's why brain triggers is so important. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes often you'll get, so I have this friend, Robin Thompson, and she's one of America's booming personal finance coaches. She's on television and all that stuff. Okay. And so we wanted to come up with a program, the name of her program that would help. And so I have her going through her testimonials. I forced her, I should put it on a wall near her. Okay. So she'd read the testimonials when she's talking to people, because she's selling this coaching program to women that make over $100,000 a year and then realize that they're floored by how little money they have in their savings. Because people don't realize, just by going to Starbucks every day, add 10 years to it or whatever else it is, you got 200 grand that you just gave away to Starbucks. She's got like little things like that. But so in the testimonials, there was a phrase that the woman said, I feel much more in control of my life. And I said, well, that's really powerful. Why don't we call this Women in Control? Why don't we call your program Women in Control? Not control of finances, but women in control. We say, to control your life, you have to start by controlling your finances. Okay. And it was like, wow. And I have testimonials from like, book. I read your testimonials all the time. And they're like, whoa, this is 10 times better. Jet Canfield gave me quotes. These are 10 times better than I could have said. And it's just, and when you read this, because what you're doing is, clients usually respond with, there's some passion in it. They can give you technical stuff, but there's passion too. And what you want to do is you want to communicate that passion. And reading testimonials, going through your testimonials, remembering your testimonials, holding on to your testimonials, to me is one of the most important things you could do, for two reasons. One is because you're going to learn from that. But the second one is it triggers your emotions. With Robin, she gets on the phone with somebody and she's looking at testimonials. She'll share some of the testimonials with people and they're like, oh, I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to work with you. And it's because the reason somebody wants to buy from you is often, and also the reason someone buys from you. I have this guy that often won't tell you the real reason why they want to buy from you. I work with this electronics company. Okay. I took them from 17 million to about 35 million in sales. So it was really good. We had lots of success. And I called Alan. It's awesome. And I called his home one day to get him, because there was like an issue happening at work. Okay. And I got his wife and I said, hey, it's James Bond. I don't know if you know who I am. She said, oh yeah, you're the one that made us rich. He was so embarrassed. My wife told me, I can't believe she told you that, Hey, Alan, thank you. Send your wife to thank you. But he was telling me that, yes, you've helped and it's been really great. But I want to tell you the greatest benefit I got from working with you is I have two boys, one 6 and one 8 years old. And I would spend so much time at work than my kids are growing up and I didn't spend time with them. And you taught me, because I had a management company. So you taught me how to be able to delegate well enough with people that I trust internal in my company. And I could take off like at 3:00 in the afternoon and go spend time with my boys with baseball or whatever else. And that had a profound impact on me, more than you ever imagined. And it floored me, because I'm like, I thought it was just the money I helped you make. That's more than that. And so when you see the testimonials, when you get a chance, especially today, we've got a camera on our phone. Ask some questions and record it. Say, can I record it and ask you some questions? Was it helpful or not helpful? Whatever else. It's something you have video that you can use to market it. But people will tell you stuff that you often didn't expect. And that's why absolutely testimonials can be one of the most powerful tools you ever get personally for yourself because it's going to motivate you and affect you, but also because you can use those tools to win clients. I love testimonials. They're so great.
Brilliant.
You see the testimonial from my book. Hey, you want to buy my book? The testimonials. Well, people are just blown away by it. I love it. I know I'm selling my book, but you're all selling your products and services. So welcome to the club.
No, I see that. And I've seen that on your Amazon page as well. It's full of testimonials. That's great. James.
You do a better job than I could ever do selling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just because, because people trust somebody else more than you because they know we're trying to sell. Yeah. And that's why one of the things I try to teach people is don't be afraid to tell them a mistake you've made. We go through, I say, I'm supposed to be an expert in marketing. When Steve Jobs came up with a camera on the phone, I thought, who needs a camera on a phone? What a stupid idea. Boy, was I, you can see how many photographs I have on my phone, videos. And boy, was he, but by saying that, it helps people understand it. No, I'm not pretending I'm an expert on everything. Nobody is. And that's why John Gray, who did Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, he told me, never tell people you're an expert. He says, I'm supposed to be an expert in human relations with men and women. I go home and my wife teaches me that I have no clue. Okay. Tell them you're a specialist. I'm a specialist in behavioral management.
I'm curious, are there a couple of areas in this space of emotional marketing that you find doesn't get much airtime, doesn't get talked about very much? If so, what would they be?
So I'll give you two of them. One of them is setting expectation in advance. You want to set expectation in advance. It took me a long time to be able to say I'm one of America's leading behavioral management specialists. I could prove it. I work with some of the world's most famous people and major companies and all that stuff. Okay. And so I can demonstrate it, but it's hard for us because we don't want to come across like we're blabbing about how great we are. And it's not about boasting. It's about communicating in a way that sets expectation. I have this guy, I was in a networking group. I have this guy, and in a networking group, we will write a bio of who we are. Okay. So they can read who it is. And I was trying to connect with this guy who's an investment banker who's got like major companies that he works with. And I wanted to connect with him, a lawyer who was in a networking group. So I came to him and I said, hey, I'd like to, we should get together. He said, oh, I know you're a consultant. And I was trying to sell a training program I had. And I said, oh, I have this training. He said, no, I get it. You're a consultant. He said, oh, wait, I have this. I got it. You're a consultant. Okay. Anyway, let's go on. And he wouldn't let me explain anything else because he had it in his mind. He made up his mind that I'm a consultant based on what he read. So I put at the beginning of the bio in capital letters and parentheses, but in capital letters, no, I am not a consultant in capital letters. And then I was at one of the other networking groups of this group company. And they said, hey, James, tell us about yourself. And then one guy at the table says, he is not a consultant. He must have read it. But when we understand, what's his name? The boxer, Muhammad Ali. Okay, Muhammad Ali, he said, he would tell everybody, I am the greatest. And he said, who had the greatest impact on? It had the greatest impact on me. Because if I'm telling the public I am the greatest and I'm not, then I'm going to be humiliated. So I have to come up with ways. I have to show people that I am the greatest. Michael Jackson was the king of pop. The fact that they announced him as the king of pop, did you think that helped? And so we want to understand that when you can give them a set expectation in advance, it helps to sell. Now you might have to justify it and explain it, and that's fine. But in advance, when you're talking about a product, you just say, hey, this is the only book that deals with emotional triggers. Oh, and it's the only one? Yeah. So I'm setting an expectation. Now I can explain it. Okay. And with our product or service, you want to do the same thing because people just make assumptions about what it is very fast. Okay, you're selling real estate. Oh, you're selling tractors. Okay, I got it. But if you start up front and you say, well, I know you're going to see this and you're going to think, oh, it's just another tractor, but give me 30 seconds to explain this to you because I want to show you something that you've never seen before in a tractor. Okay. So this is a tractor. It's got this and everything else, but guess what it has that nothing else has? I set the expectation. So now they're ready. They're not going to jump to a conclusion right away, but they're going to give us enough time to do that. So that's one. And the other one is something called chiasmus. Okay. So rhyme works in California, in America, we know if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Got O.J. Simpson off for an almost certain guilty verdict in a murder trial. Okay. So rhyme works and rhyme works tremendously. Okay. But then rhyme is AB, but there's something called chiasmus, which is ABA. It's a flip. And let me give you something, okay? All for one and one for all, okay? Let me give you a few other ones. Winners never quit and quitters never win, okay? When the going gets tough, the tough get going, okay? So when you understand the power of chiasmus, you can actually use it. They use it for products. In Southern California, there was a hamburger place, a family that started a hamburger place, takeout hamburgers. They were competing against McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's. These are companies that spend like $10 million a year or more on advertising. How are you going to compete with that? So they realized we don't have enough money to spend on advertising, so that's not going to work. We don't have enough money to buy a big location that has indoor restaurants, so we'll have a takeout, okay? But let's come up with a term that people are going to remember. It's going to stand out from their brain. And so they said, it's a drive-through, so why don't we call it In-N-Out Burger? In-N-Out means sex to a lot of us, okay? But it's a chiasmus, it's a flip, In-N-Out Burger. And they put a big sign up that says In-N-Out. They've got a good location, but it's a small location because they only do takeout. And the lines form. They still learn. They're expanding to Western United States and many of the states in the Western United States. It's a family business competing with McDonald's, and yet you have to have good product. But how many people have product and you struggle? They don't struggle. They open up locations and people get mad. I have to drive 15 minutes to get to an In-N-Out Burger. I wish there was one closer to my home. Oh, we'll put it there. But there's Icy Hot. Is this thing for people who have arthritis, and you have arthritis pain. Icy Hot really works. So it's chiasmus, it's a flip. Famous people like President John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Okay, that's chiasmus, it's a flip. He also said mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. Malcolm X, civil rights activist, he came up with lines. He could easily have said, he was a black guy, he easily could have said, you have no idea how hard it is being black in America. Instead, what he said was, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us. Okay. He also said something that a lot of people don't attribute to him because they don't realize he actually developed this line, but it's when you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. It's in a brain, chiasmus, it's very powerful. There are famous comedians, and Mae West used this, okay? She was in the early days of the movie industry. She uncovered Cary Grant. She was like amazing, okay? She had a play on Broadway, and it was called Sex, okay? And they said, we're going to arrest you. She said, please do. They said, why? So because it gets more publicity if I get arrested. I have to play sex, right? She was really amazing. But she loved chiasmus. She said, it's better to be looked over than overlooked, okay? Women like a man with a past, but they prefer a man with a present. Show up with a present, okay? Good girls go to heaven. Bad girls go everywhere, okay? And then she had this other one. This is a really, I don't know if I can cross the line on this, but a hard man is good to find. Okay.
So,
But it works. And you can use it in pitches. And when you use it in pitches, I said to the joke, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal bottom. But it works when you're trying to sell your product because it resonates with the brain. You want people to remember what you're offering. We would say with ours, you better change their habits or their habits are going to change you. Talking about senior people going, okay, that's true. Okay. But it resonates more because I use chiasmus. So these are some of the powerful tools. And it's fun in the book because people go through this, it names the tool, describes what it is, then it gives you examples, including jokes and marketers that used it, that it was a name or a description of the product, and then has an exercise that you can come up with one yourself. And then you won't do it for everyone, but hopefully the first ones, like setting expectation is really important. There are certain things, making them laugh is one, but there are other ones really powerful. They're all powerful. In fact, making them laugh triggers oxytocin in the brain, okay? Oxytocin triggers, goes in your body. And if somebody gets mad, if they're really pissed off or scared, let's say you piss somebody off, you get them really mad, it triggers cortisol, and cortisol stays in the bloodstream for up to 36 hours. If somebody might have pissed you off yesterday, maybe your girlfriend or wife or whatever, or boyfriend pissed you off yesterday, and I'm going to try to sell you something today. You're not going to be, you're going to be resistant to it. Okay? Somewhat, because you got this negative stuff going through your bloodstream, okay? But oxytocin is a remedy for it. Oxytocin is if you make somebody laugh or if you fascinate them with something. So if you tell a joke, I tell this joke, I say, find these people and I know they're religious. So I said, so a little girl comes up to her mommy and says, Mommy, Daddy says we came from apes, but you say we came from Adam and Eve. Honey, Daddy's talking about his family. I'm talking about my family. Okay. But I start with a joke and suddenly people become more receptive to what I'm going to say.
Mhm.
And so I have friends who are among the top attorneys, the top 100 attorneys in America. One of them is one of the top 10 attorneys in America. And he said, so I won't tell who it is, 'cause I don't want to give away his secret. But he figured this thing out. He was telling me, he said, I make judges and jury. I win more cases than most other attorneys. In fact, many attorneys that have a case that they know is unwinnable will often give it to me. I won't win every time, but I will often win when they can't win. And part of one of the tools I use is I make them laugh. I make the judge and jury laugh. If I can make them laugh during the trial, they subconsciously want to help me more than the other guy who's all serious. And it's like these tools, when you start reading them and you start seeing the example, you start seeing examples all over the place. People start realizing, oh, wow, I mean, Squatty Potty is a funny name. So Squatty Potty isn't the only one. How about Porta Potty? Let's do business to business, okay? B2B, okay? Porta Potty. My 6-year-old grandson, we're driving under a freeway and a short freeway, and there are porta potties up there. We don't know if it's porta potties because they have competitors. He goes, look, hey, there's a porta potty. He's a 6-year-old and he remembers it's called a porta potty. It sticks with the brain. Put a porta potty, and it uses the repetition of sound, alliteration, which is porta potty. And so it's coming up with the name porta potty. It's a portable, what are we going to call it? Outhouse, or whatever you want to call it. No, potty. It's easier to remember. And because it's easier to remember, it's easier to sell and it's easier to get people to buy. So it's so powerful to me. And that's why it's blowing so many people's minds. Most people get like really some bad reviews. I didn't get any bad reviews. Like, thanks. I've got 150 people or something, 140 people. But yeah, because it's so relevant. That's why it's so relevant that we're a business. Why struggle when just changing your name or description just slightly can suddenly explode your sales? And it's just is blowing people's minds, not just the book, but when they apply some of it and they start going, oh, I have this woman that has a candle company and does about $1 million of sales, but they're just no-name candles, and she does candles for famous people and stuff like that. And so I got her to come up with this name. It's just the stupidest name. I was just brainstorming with a stupid name. We call it nose noodles. Nose noodles. It's a candle that literally eliminates, if you have a dog or a cat in the house that smells a little bit of it, it eliminates the smell in the house by using this candle. And she's selling like crazy. She can't believe how many people are buying it. I want your nose noodles. What? I was just kidding. But she hits her name and said, let me try that. Nose noodles sounds cool. It's bizarre even, but it works. Hey, if it works, it works. What can I say? So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have a product that has potential customers. Okay. And so one of the things you want to look at is, what are you the alternative to? That's very important to understand. Somebody came to me with a way to brush your dog's teeth. And I'm looking at it as, who brushes their dog's teeth? What's that the alternative to? You guys are going to struggle. He said, no, we think it's a good idea. I said, okay, what's it the alternative to? Because you basically, whenever we're offering, it could be, if they brush their own dog's teeth themselves, that's okay too. How many people do that? I've had dogs never brush their teeth. Okay. And I don't know anyone who's ever brushed the teeth. So I think when you're trying to invent a new type of thing, it's really hard. And another person come to me and they said, this is before, now you see them everywhere, electric bikes. We have bikes that you can pedal, but also it runs its electricity. I said, wow, look at what you're competing with. Older people that can't have a driver's license, they can drive with electric bikes. A parent that wants to drive his kids or her kids up and down the street, the hills and stuff, and then sometimes they get tired, they want a bike. It's just for exercise, it's fun, and then when you get tired, you can just let it ride as an electric bike. I think you'll do really well. And guess what? He did. They're selling like crazy. So the first thing you want to do is look at, what are you the alternative to? And the alternative doesn't have to be products and services. It could be the client doing it themselves. Like we had an advertising agency. So one of the things where the alternative to is them doing their own advertising. If you can't think of it being popular, that you're competing against, you're an alternative to something that exists, you probably don't want to get into business, or you're probably going to struggle more than you need to, because it's very hard if you don't have something that you're the alternative to. Okay. So to me, that's the first thing. The second one is look at competitors. Okay. And also look at competitors and see what's out there. Okay. And then you want to be able to explain how you're different from everybody else. Here's a phrase you want to end one of these two phrases. I'm the only one that dot, or I'm one of the few that dot. I have this accountant, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what can I say? He said, give me your background. He said, I used to work for the IRS. That's a no-brainer. I'm one of the few accountants that actually work for the IRS. So I can help. First, I'll eliminate all the red flags. And if you get an IRS coming to investigate with you, I'm the guy who was on the other side of the desk, so I can help. I said, that's a no-brainer. Okay, I am one of the few, or I'm the only one that, okay? And that's the thing. But then you want to come up with a logical way to explain what you do. What is it? It's a squatty. It's a toilet stool. Okay. It's okay. Okay. What is it? How do you describe it? And describe what the edge is, what the difference is that makes you successful. Okay. And then the last thing you want to do is buy my book. You know, I'm saying it, but do brain glue. Even if you don't buy a book, you can actually go to Amazon and just, show you all the different brain glue tools. Okay. But you want to come up with an emotional way to describe what it is, and short and sweet. Again, porta potty. Okay. They came up with porta potty and they sold like crazy because, hey, Joe, we're buying a porta potty. And they know immediately what it is. You don't even have to explain to me what a porta potty is. I get it. Just by the words porta potty. You want to come up with a name that resonates, that sticks to the brain. But so that's this. What are the alternative to? What makes you different so that people would want to buy yours? And what are logical ways to describe that? And then what's an emotional way to describe it? If you come through all those, then it'll become fantastic as far as selling. And I'll go back to the contractors, the construction guys who were fire restoration for insurance companies, and they're the fire extinguisher. There are other construction companies that sold fire restoration, but we're the fire extinguisher. So it's easy for the clients, the prospects, and the clients to know us and what we do because we're your fire extinguisher. It just resonated in such a way that it made it easy to sell, because selling is so hard. You don't have to go through this long explanation. Oh, here's what we do. And done. And here's 5 minutes later, you're still describing what you do. Yes, you can do that, but you want to. Albert Einstein has this great line, and he said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you probably don't fully understand what it is that you're selling or what you're explaining. And so you need to explain it in such a way that a 6-year-old understands it.
And James, to wrap up, if you were listening to this episode, what would you say would be your top takeaway?
First, simple reflexive questions. Doesn't that make sense?
Fair enough.
Because communication is about interacting. And you want to, especially if you're face to face with a person or on a podcast or on a Zoom call or in front of an audience or whatever else, if you can wire this into how you speak, it changes your whole relationship. As it's changed from my family, how I interact with my family, because if something's going on, or if I say, how do you like my book? And they go, I love it. It resonates. But communication is not, when I started, I thought it's to tell them as much as you can, as quickly as you can. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. If you can say, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. With all that evidence against them, the hand is simple. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. 8 words. Okay, 8 words. Got a guy off for an almost certain guilty verdict in a murder trial. Squatty Potty sold $100 million and they have no business experience. Come on. You gotta it works. But yeah, so to me, simple reflexive questions is one of the first things. And then the other one is, just looking at some of the emotional selling tools, I think that can really be valuable.
And if listeners are curious, want to find out more or connect with you, where would you recommend that they head to?
You can go to Amazon and see the book on brain glue, but you can also go to yesbrainglue.com.
Okay.
YESbrainglue.com. And that'll take you to a page where you get a chance to see a lot of stuff about brain glue and tools and why it works and testimonials, but you'll also see elements of brain glue and what it is that makes it so powerful. So yesbrainglue.com. I think that you guys would enjoy the page. And you get a chance to see it, because I'm using emotional selling on the page. I'm used to describing and stuff. But we're all in this together, guys and gals, and we're just trying to figure out, if you have a product or service that's really good, you want to simplify as much as possible what you're selling. And Yes Brain Glue will at least help you.
We'll include links to that in the show notes. James, thank you so much for doing this. It's been brilliant.
Oh, Vinay, it was just delightful chatting with you. You're lots of fun. I can see why so many people are hooked on your podcast. There's no reason to not understand why.